Hello and welcome to the Green Outdoors podcast. My name is Kyle Green and I'm joined by Jimmy Gretzinger and Jordan Brown of Michigan Out of Doors. And if you're from Michigan, they need no introduction. Everyone, I say anyone that's ever held a fishing rod or a gun in Michigan knows who Michigan Out of Doors is. And obviously you've been the leader of it for quite some time. And we're not in our studio right now. We're in Bosch Shot Shells headquarters. So we happen to both work with Bosch Shot Shells, which is I don't really have to tell you who they are because if you watch our show, you've heard about them a million times. But they're the best shotgun shell manufacturer in the world, and they happen to be in the greatest state in the United States, Michigan. We can argue that because we've gone all over the world and we've met so many people, and we've now been in 42 states filming. And Michigan is absolutely the best.
Pretty hard to beat.
It is. I always say that I would travel to other states. I might even live in them for a month or two. But I'm not going to leave Michigan. It's like right now is the perfect time too. It's fall. The leaves are turning. Everything's beautiful. It's hunting season for so many different critters right now. So I'd like to do an introduction with you guys just to kind of kick it off. Again, Michigan Out of Doors. You probably know it if you're from our state. It's been on TV forever. There's a guy named Bill who I feel like I have to give a shout out to, even though he's recently passed. But he's he would have been 90 years old, and this would have been his I forgot what hunting season, like his 78th hunting season, but he was 90 years old, and I don't think he ever missed an episode of you guys in his lifetime. You know what I mean? It's like once he was watching TV and you guys were on the air, he was there watching, and I know he would think it was really special that we had you guys here today.
Well, the show has been on since the early 1950s is when it started, so it's been going for quite a while, and I grew up watching it. I think Jordan did as well, and so it's really been fun for us to as a kid to watch this. Because I think if we produced the same show that we do now and just started with it today, it wouldn't have near the following. But because we've grown up with it here in Michigan, that that means a lot. So.
Right. It's like that tradition. Like you hear that song, and it's just like you get the chills a little bit. I'm sure you guys have seen it so many times that you're probably.
We tried to change the song.
Don't do that.
Would have been
backfired.
I think, right around 2010 because I had just moved to Grand Haven, and I think we'd only been there maybe. I think I've told you this story before, but lived there for a couple weeks, and we were like checking out some of the local pizza places or whatever. And so I go into this place, get some pizzas, and I turn around, and this guy goes, "Go ahead, tell him." And he's got his 10-year-old daughter right there. I'm like, "What? What'd I do?" And she goes, "Would you please change the song back to what it used to be?" And I'm like, "Wow, okay, I know."
It only took one little girl.
Well, people had been just dogging us because we tried to change the song, and yeah, so it's I guess.
And the song we looked at changing it to was one we've used on the show by a Michigan artist. It wasn't like we tried to go crazy.
Right.
It was still a song that fit very brand, and the backlash was real. So we got the same song.
That tells you more than just about the song, though. That tells you about like the passion and the connection people feel to the product. You know what I mean? Because it's like they grew up with it. It's that song. If you went back and watched an old movie that you couldn't wait to show your kids, and it was a different ending or a different beginning, you'd be pissed. And it's kind of like that for them, where they're like, Michigan Out of Doors is that tradition. And it's funny. Like I said, grew up watching you, and one of the problems that we ran into, we started our show about 10, maybe I think we're entering our 11th year or something like that. We started on YouTube, then went to Pursuit Channel, then Sportsman Channel, then Outdoor Channel, then eventually History Channel. But in the first few seasons, something we ran into, and there was like people would hold up a sign behind the camera because we'd do an introduction kind of like you guys do. I would be like, and now it's time for the Greenway Outdoors, and I would always add your emphasis on it, and I started to speak like you. So I had to stop watching Michigan Out of Doors because I was picking up too many of your traits. What
a compliment.
That's
well, I'm glad you took that because I was like, well, they won't hate, they'll think it's cool, and then it'd be cool if they think it's cool. And he's like, they're going to think you're making fun of them or mimicking them or something. I go, I'm not. It's like when you watch something, you start to... acquire those traits. I'm allowed to watch you now because our show's different enough that I don't do it. But
I think awesome. I'm guilty of the same thing when I first started doing voiceover. Like I didn't have any training in voiceover or anything, so I'm like, I listened to Jimmy's segment, and this is how he says Michigan Out of Doors. Like, next thing I know, I'm saying it just it's hard to avoid a little bit.
And I picked it up from Bob Garner, who was the host before me, because he would kind of do that. He had a big play. He'd come in real Michigan Out of Doors. Then it was like, well, how long is the pause supposed to be? And what if I just don't pause?
And like, if I change it too much, are people going to be mad? Am I going to have a little girl upset? So that's actually pretty funny. Getting back to kind of when you were starting it, and you acquired Michigan Out of Doors, but it's interesting because it's like it's your business. However, you kind of have this legacy that you have to live up to with the people that owned it previously and the people that were the hosts of it previously. And I guess my question would be is like, what was the process for you of like stepping into it, acquiring Michigan Outdoors, and then what was your goals for it? And then also like, how much of that legacy that they created do you feel like you have to carry, and who did you look up to most, you know, in that group?
There's a lot of
There's
questions
a lot
there.
of questions there.
Loaded.
Well, so I started with the show back in 1998. So I just finished 27 years and working on 28 now. So, so Bob Garner had left Michigan Out of Doors in earlier that year in 1998, and so they were looking to hire somebody like a new low man on the totem pole. The shows typically always had about 3 people that were full time, and that's what we kind of figured we need to do the show. At least that many. You could have more, but and so it was kind of a cool thing. It was my elementary school gym teacher, who was the head honcho of Ducks Unlimited at the time, back in the fall of '98, and they're sitting in the duck marsh with the person that was now in charge, and he's like, "Yeah, we need to hire somebody new for the TV show," and my elementary school gym teacher was like, "Well, I know this kid who grew up hunting and fishing, and he's got a degree in broadcasting," and they're like, "Oh, well, have him get a hold of us." So he calls my dad. He's like, "Hey, Michigan Outdoors is looking for somebody. Go call Jimmy and tell him." And so my dad calls me, and then I got a hold of Michigan Outdoors, and I said, "What are you looking for?" And then they kind of explained, and I said, "Well, I got to be down in Lansing in the next week anyway, so I'll stop in, bring a tape and a resume," and so that kind of started the ball rolling. But
tape.
Yeah, I know, right?
And it was tape back then. But so I started with the show in '98, and at the time, the Michigan United Conservation Clubs is the one that owned the show. So it had been in previous years. Fred Trost had the show for a long time. Then he had a bunch of legal difficulties, and the name Michigan Outdoors went up basically for sale. And MUCC bought that name and restarted the show in 1993. And so when Bob retired, I came in. And Bob had been the host that I mostly recognized him and Fred Trost as the one that were kind of doing Michigan Outdoors at the time, and then it switched to Michigan Out of Doors. It's been...
Was the out of to dodge like a legal thing?
Well, so the show was called Michigan Outdoors for forever. And then what happened was...
Doesn't that sound weird now? You know, because you're so used to out of.
And we keep thinking about maybe even switching it back, but at this point it's like, well, people use the terms interchangeably anyways. But the reason they put in the of was when MUCC bought the name Michigan Outdoors, they had a magazine at the time, and still do, called Michigan Out of Doors. Mm-hmm. So when they relaunched the show, they relaunched it as Michigan Out of Doors to kind of match their magazine. So, and I worked for MUCC for about 10 years or so, and then it would have been in the early 2000s when the economy was not very good, and MUCC was looking at all the things that they do, and they figured they didn't have to do a TV show, and so they approached me saying, "Would you be interested in buying the television show?" And so that started a several-month process of us trying to figure that out, and what is it worth, and how are we going to do this, so I ended up purchasing the show at the beginning of 2009.
Okay.
And then have had it since. And we still have a relationship with MUCC. They still have a magazine called Michigan Out of Doors.
Yeah, you still see it in their podcast. It's called that too, I believe.
Yeah, and so we still work with them kind of loosely, but but it was a great thing for me.
But it's just common interest at this point, not necessarily like a business thing between the two of you.
Yeah. Correct. Yep. And then Jordan came along about 15 years ago now.
Yeah, most recent employee.
So
you're the new guy.
Well, it was funny because we were doing this bow hunting competition. I guess it was competition. It was a viewer video competition.
Yeah. Okay.
And he sent in this video of him of a buddy shooting this really nice buck on public land, and so he won the competition, and then he was gonna I think he submitted stuff the next year, and he was gonna win the next year too. I'm like, why don't we just pay you to bow hunt, And he's like, oh, okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was grant writing at the time for the state of Michigan, which is as bad as it sounds.
My gosh.
So,
I know a thing or two about grant writing,
Yeah.
and it takes a certain person. I bet you wish you had AI then.
yes, that'd be very nice. But I was, wrapping up my last semester at college and, doing the whole cubicle thing. And when Jimmy approached me about a job, I'm like, well, I guess I'll do this till I get a real job. This sounds fun, and if I can make it work, I'll do it. And so, kind of like we were talking about before the podcast, you start out kind of just winging a prayer and hoping it all goes. And I was working part-time at first, and then kind of part-time went to 3/4 time, and then to full-time, and that was 15 years ago. So
yeah.
That's
Hard to believe.
That's pretty special. I always say too, like in business or in my personal life and stuff, it's the character of the people typically determines whether something's actually going to work out or not. Because if you look at the statistics, it's not going to look pretty.
No.
You know, it's not. It's always 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 100 make it in that specific industry. But in this case, it's kind of interesting. And the format of your guys' show hasn't changed much in the years since I've been around watching it. And I almost say you guys are like, it's like a hybrid of like a vlog and an outdoor show mixed with highlighting other people in the field around Michigan. And I think that's what actually made you guys successful. I'd ask you that question, but it's like everyone knows about Michigan Outdoors, and everyone that knows about Michigan Outdoors tells you how their cousin or they were on it at one point in time over the last, 50 years or whatever it is. But how has that formula worked out for you guys, or has it changed at all? Like, have you seen it?
What do you say, Jimmy? Somewhere between the news and the regular outdoor show?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
No, it's considered a magazine format would be what I've heard over the years. Is and so we'll try to do. Every show usually has at least 2, sometimes up to 4 different segments on it. So, and I think the reason that has kind of worked because, let's say if we did a whole show on duck hunting, which would be great, but if you're not a duck hunter, you're like, I'm not watching this. But if you're like, well, I can sit through 6 minutes of ducks because I got that dog training thing coming on and I'm really into dogs, or I want to see that bow hunting segment at the end of the show, or something like that. So I think having a few different things, which is very different than a lot of outdoor shows where they're going to go to a location and they're going to do a whole episode from there, which is great, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that magazine format allows you to have a little bit more diversity on there, but you'd also have more travel because instead of going to one spot, you're going to 3. And
it probably makes it more interesting for you too.
It does. And
imagine if every episode was walleye fishing. It's like
right. And the thing about our show, I think, is it's definitely not about the host of the show. Like if you were going to watch me hunting and fishing every week, that'd get really boring really fast. But the fact that we're going to have, Bill from Houghton Lake on, and he's going to show us how to troll for bluegill on Houghton Lake or something like that. It's like, well, I've never even heard of that, or whatever. Or I know that spot, and or we're going to be up on Mullet Lake. Oh, I used to spend summers in Indian River, and blah, blah, blah. So I think, but because it's not about me, it's really about the people and the places of the state of Michigan. I think that helps a lot because there's not a lot of people that, there's a ton of outdoor shows and there's a ton of hosts, and there's only a handful that I think are, that can carry that whole thing all the way through.
Entertaining enough to watch every week.
Yeah, so I think it's nice because we're not the star of the show by any stretch, and we're trying to find people and tell their story, And at the end of the day, as technology has changed and all the stuff, at the end of the day, if you can tell a good story and engage with people, that's what, and make it meaningful, I think that's what works.
And I think in a weird way, the way things have changed now where people want to see things quicker, it used to be like you spend a whole year filming a TV show and then it airs the next year, and then social media kind of came along and everybody wanted to see everything, they want to know the fishing report from yesterday. Kind of fed into what we already do. We were already spending stuff. You'll film something this weekend, it could be on next Thursday's show, 6-7 day turnaround. I think that has kind of helped people it seemed like there was this area where maybe in 2010, 2015, where people really wanted to see somebody shoot a 180-inch buck out of a food plot. Well, then you saw that a whole bunch, and you're like, well, I don't know if I really want to see that anymore, but maybe I'll watch a public land bow hunt that's right by my deer camp kind of thing. And with the way we turn stuff around and it stays current, it almost feels like the last 5 years, maybe it's just me, almost feels like it's kind of come back into our wheelhouse a little bit. We haven't changed what we've done, but I feel like the way people view things and the way they, crave content and authentic content, it's almost come back to help us even more in a way.
I could completely see that. Especially, like you said, people are wanting to see everything right now. It helps that you're in the best state in the world because you also have all the different seasons and when it's March, we know that you're going to be talking about rabbit hunting and steelhead fishing, and then April comes, and now it's walleye season, and then you got May with morels and turkeys, and it's like people do those hunting and fishing adventures, and it's almost like, for instance, if we post something on YouTube about turkey hunting, it's going to do really good March to May. But then there'll be no views for a while, and then maybe it'll pick up a little bit the following year. Whereas you guys, every piece of content that comes out is exactly that moment time to what they want to see.
We try to get it on as quick as we can. Like Jordan said, but we're hoping, I'm taping a grouse hunt this weekend, and I'm hoping I have enough footage that I can edit something together for next week's show.
Yeah.
Usually we have a little bit more stuff kind of in the can and ready to go, but this time of year there's so much going on, so we have a lot of stuff to choose from, where in March or January we don't have quite as many things to pick from, but you still...
It's always something, though. Yeah.
But every week you got to fill 26 minutes and 46 seconds.
Right.
So.
That's funny.
Yeah.
It would be nice if you guys could add ice fishing to it in the last 5 years. What is with that? We can't buy ice to go ice fishing.
2 years ago, I had to go to Big Bay up in the Keweenaw and do an ice fishing segment. It's crazy. Yeah.
The Greenway Outdoors is brought to you by Ram Trucks. Nothing stops Ram. And by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Your adventure starts here. Onyx Hunt. Know where you stand with the #1 hunting app. Savage Arms, where better comes standard. Boss Shot Shells, premium grade and American made. Nosler Ammunition, a step above the rest. And by Carlson's Choke Tubes, the only choke tube we've ever used. Follow the Greenway Outdoors on all social platforms for our weekly podcast, vlogs, how-tos, merch, and more. Powered by Dynamo CX.
Americans, we can do anything we want. Except one thing. We just can't stop being American. Because since that revolution they said we'd lose, we just couldn't choose to stop being American. We put Hemi V8s back on the strip and packed 8 layers in a 7-layer dip. We're body slams and blue suede shoes, rock and roll, jazz and blues. Rockin' mullets and Rat Pack suits, even our grandmas have tattoos. We're NASCAR, rock stars, rodeo, monster trucks, and power boats. Welcome to our epic show. Keep winning on Sunday, move horsepower Monday, shake the earth and carve terrain, rock the anthem like Kenny Wayne. So get out there, take your swings, burn rubber after the American dream, rev your engines and let freedom ring, and never, ever, ever stop being American. Nothing stops America, and nothing stops Ram.
You wait all year for these few days. The routine. The challenge. When it counts, you trust us, and we deliver. Every time. You're built to take on anything. And so are we.
Something kind of shifting gears a little bit, something that I've noticed in the outdoor industry, and I want you to tell me if you disagree with me too. When we were just in Idaho, so this isn't a state-specific thing, but we were supposed to fly into this remote river in order to film an episode for History Channel, where we were going to fish these super remote rivers that nobody can get to, and fish that have never seen a fly before, and it was going to be this epic thing, catch and cook, and right by the water. But when we were trying to fly in, the wildfires were so bad we couldn't land, so we had to turn around and go back. So we went back and we're like, okay, well, we're between these two towns, and it's an hour and a half between the two. There's rivers every stretch of the way. We'll use OnX and kind of figure out, some spots to hit. And every time I would find a spot, pick it, I'd be like, okay, we're going to try this one now. We'd go there, there'd be a fisherman there. Go to the next one, there's a fisherman there. There's a fisherman there. And it was like, okay, it's Idaho. But what I'm hearing from hunters in the field when I interact with them in the state of Michigan too, is like manage waterfowl, duck draws, public land stuff. And I think it's unique that it doesn't necessarily impact deer hunters as much, and I'll explain why I think that is in a minute. But it seems as though with like turkey hunting, bow hunting, rabbit hunting, pheasant hunting, obviously those are preserve hunts and stuff like that in our state, but like these different hunts, people are seeing a lot more people in the field. Grouse spots are a little bit more contentious now. You used to go to state land and not see anyone. Now you're seeing people. But then, the Department of Natural Resources comes out and says, well, actually we're selling far less hunting and fishing licenses. And it's like, that's very interesting, because from what I'm gathering from the people in the state, and that's why I want your opinion on it too, I'm gathering that they're running into more hunters in the field, that they're running into more fishermen at the boat launches, that they're going up brook trout fishing and they're running into fishermen more. And my hypothesis is this, that actually we are selling less hunting and fishing licenses, but the people that are hunting and fishing now are like diehards in their category. People that grouse hunt like most of the season. They're missing 8 days of the season, whereas maybe in the past they hunted 8 days of the season. It used to be most deer hunters would buy, their public land tag, and this is like the boomer generation, that sort of thing. They would buy their deer license. They'd go out deer hunting for 5-6 days. They take a long weekend or whatever it is for deer camp, and then that would be their hunting. And then they might jump shoot a couple rabbits here and there, or maybe duck hunt once or twice a year, and that was like their hunting. But the kids now in our generation getting into it are just more diehards. Like the people that are doing it are more diehards. And I'm wondering if you're hearing the same sentiment, or if you guys are seeing the opposite, because you're more boots on the ground than I am in this state.
I think part of it's technology driven, like what you mentioned. Like Onyx is almost too good in a way. So that little piece of public that maybe you grew up hunting down the road from your deer camp that nobody knew about, and you knew this one good spot in there. Well, now guys can be sitting at work in their office and they can find that same bedding area on their computer, and they know where every track of public land is. Like when you go out west, everybody and their brother has been on a mapping system looking for north-facing slopes to chase elk in. I think that alone has made a big difference of why you see people, but more, especially at public access.
So they're congregating more, like anti-COVID.
Just kidding. Kind of. I mean, I think the fact that the way the mapping systems work send people to a lot of the same areas, if that makes sense to
Interesting.
me. And everybody knows where these pieces of public are, or where these good areas are, where the river access is. When in a way that 20 years ago you'd have to almost figure that out on your own, and less people. And if you did find a good trout fishing spot on some hidden bridge, you weren't telling anybody. So
right.
There's very few people. Now everybody knows every access on the Little Manistee or wherever you're going. I think that's part of it. I mean, I do think there's a generational change that we get to see so many different things. If you're diehard in trout fishing, you follow 50 people on Instagram that have all these different trout stories, and they're posting different pictures from a UP. All of a sudden it's like, oh, maybe I should go to the UP and try trout fishing. I never really thought about that. Or again, 20 years ago, like unless your buddy or your dad or somebody was actively doing those things, maybe you weren't so drawn to go drive across country to try to trace, trout in some stream in Idaho.
Sure.
I think there's a little bit of that too. You see it a lot more often, and if that's what you're into, it piques your interest.
Sure.
Yeah, I think you are seeing more people. Well, yes, I think you are seeing more people depending on, and it's very, I think there's like three parts of our state, and they're so very different. You get southern, lower, northern, lower, and the UP, and it's different for each, they're just different worlds almost. I mean, the UP and the northern lower have some common factors, but I was just up north about 2 weeks ago for a grouse camp at our little shack that we have up in Sheboygan County, and we saw more bird hunters over that weekend than we have in a long time.
Right, and that's what I'm hearing.
Years and years and years. Now, I also hunted just down the road from my house the other day, waiting for the woodcock flights to come through, and we pulled into our spot to hunt, which was a state land rec area, and we pulled in there. There was 2 trucks, but we didn't know. So we're trying to figure out, are these bird hunters? Are they already in there? Are these bow hunters that are in there? So we didn't know, but we hunted and got our birds. We didn't see anybody else, but there was 2 trucks right there.
They're there though.
Yeah, and so what we are running into, and on that weekend when I was in northern Michigan, there was I don't know how many groups of like the side by sides and doing the tours of northern Michigan, and you'll be out, we were hunting, and here comes 150 side by sides, and you're like, what in the world,
Yeah.
And then they were also running some sort of a ultra marathon through the. I was like, there's people everywhere, So that's not all the time, but I think definitely there are spots where that is the case. It's funny because I was saying, like, gosh, it's too bad that there's a television show out there encouraging people to get out and use the outdoors. So all the guys at our camp are like, would you quit talking about, like, have people stay home, tell them that there's no deer, no grouse, no nothing.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said for that too. But I do believe last year that was the first year that we have sold more hunting licenses than they did the year before.
Okay.
Primarily that was for deer tag. So I mean, I think we're seeing, there's definitely an uptick in how many kids are getting in the outdoors, women in the outdoors. So there are parts of the outdoors that are growing, and I think that's important to say too, because it's not all doom and gloom. Like, well, it's all going away, and but I think you're right. There are we're seeing a lot of people out there using the resource. So
yeah, and a part of me celebrates that, right? You know what I mean? It's like we're excited about it because I see those.
They're not in your spot.
Yeah. I love duck hunters as long as they're not where I'm going. But in all reality, it's like I've gotten to the point now, and I think that's me getting the opportunity to hunt since I was a little kid, thanks to my dad, is because I grew up hunting, because I've gotten to have those experiences. Like when I see other people, especially if they're kind of fidgeting around and don't necessarily know what they're doing, like give them advice or hand them some Boss shot shells or whatever interaction I might have with them. It it pumps me up to see new people out there. And the other thing too is like we need them. 60% of hunting and fishing licenses are sold to white males over the age of 55 in Michigan right now.
Yeah. What
happens when they go away? So we need the funding for our natural resources, but I think there's also a point of, and I won't dive into this too much for you guys, but there also has to be accountability with how those funds are spent, 100%. Like we have to know exactly how that's being spent, and I think we should determine it. Something I always talk. I'm gonna bring up Idaho again. I don't have some secret love for them, although I do like the state quite a bit. But we met with the Department of Natural Resources there because we typically film in some capacity with the DNR, or at least there's communication with them about what we're doing to make sure that, because we cannot make a mistake, because you guys can't either. Right. It's like we gotta know. But while we were there talking to them, what they were actually doing was they were putting together a big survey of like the top 50 things that they could think of to do that would best benefit anglers and hunters. And then if you buy a hunting or fishing license, you get sent that. And he was like, that's how we determine what we work on. So imagine that, where the hunters and anglers get to be like, and their number one thing that year, this is maybe 3 years ago, their number one thing that they voted on in Idaho was they cared about native cutthroat trout surviving. That's like what they cared about. The big problem there is rainbow trout and cutthroat trout interbreed with each other. So then you get cut bows, but not true cutthroat trout anymore. So one of the programs that they were doing is there's a lot of like fishless lakes in the mountains there. So we were actually going in electroshocking rainbow trout, moving them to another river system where there isn't cutthroat trout, so the anglers would still have the opportunity to catch them, to take away the competition there for the cutthroat trout in those waters, which was really fun. Yeah. It's like you're like zapping fish and you're trying to scoop them up quick, and it was a really good time. And then they had this huge, giant portable fish tank that kept them all alive, and the water filtered. Then we took them to the next river and then dumped them in the big hose into the other river system. It was very cool. But that program was done and managed and chosen to be done by the people. And we would stock those fishless lakes with cutthroat trout as well to create opportunities for not native people, but people that live in Idaho that know about them to go up there and fish them, because they know how to get there. And like people that come visit are going to fish the Snake River or something like that. They're not going to go all the way up there. So they put those there. And it's also like DNA holders of like, so if something happens in the river system, you've got these pools of true cutthroat trout to be able to restock.
Do they have the NRC dynamic there with the DNR?
I don't know.
DNR operate independently.
Yeah, I believe they operate independently.
That's a big part of the issue here too. It's not just the DNR. So the DNR are often the scapegoats for every decision that gets made. In reality, they don't make the decisions. They advise the NRC on what decisions should be made or what they think should be made, and then it's up to them on how it kind of moves forward. So I think with some of that, it's like the DNR always gets blamed. They make plenty of mistakes, don't get me wrong, but it's not always their decision that people are upset about.
Sure. And then
The Greenway Outdoors is brought to you by Ram Trucks. Nothing stops Ram. And by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Your adventure starts here. LEM Game Processing Equipment. Wilderness Athlete. Fuel for the rugged. Sea-Doo. Live the Sea-Doo life. Rufus Teague. Seasoning, sauces, and snacks. Trigicon. Brilliant aiming solutions. Skidoo. Experience that skidoo feeling. Summit Tree Stands. Hunting elevated. And Blokes. Modern men's health. The Greenway Outdoors is brought to you by Ram Trucks. Nothing stops Ram. And by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Your adventure starts here. Tracker Boats. Fish the finest. And by Eagle Fishing. Tactical fishing gear for the savvy angler. Consistency. That's what you aim for with every practice shot. So when you're out in the field, you get that same consistency every shot. With Carlson's choke tubes, consistency is what you'll get. Our choke tubes are long-lasting, high quality, and made right here in the USA. Carlson's choke tubes, pattern tested, hunter approved. Find out more at choketube.com.
Are you anxious to get going? Knowing that the clock is ticking and time truly is the most precious commodity in the world? Then you, my friend, are in good company.
Something that we actually fought against and played a big part in was, this isn't, again, I always feel like I have to say this, is like, the statistic that I gave you, the 60% of hunting and fishing licenses sold to white males over the age of 55, that's actually what inspired me to start the show. I wanted to reach younger kids and younger generations with content so that in the future they would buy hunting and fishing licenses. So there's no one that wants to see the DNR succeed more than me. I want that to be said because it seems like I'm crapping on them all the time because I'm highlighting mistakes, but that's not what I'm trying to do.
No.
So that's where my heart is. That said, they were giving out permits or planning to. They had done a couple, but it's like muddied water, where they were going to gas chamber geese. So they were going to round up geese by the hundreds, put them in gas chambers, and then kill them that way, and then throw them in a landfill because they were like nuisance geese.
Yeah.
So I went on CBS News and talked about it, and the video across different platforms ended up doing like 2.4 million views and inspired thousands of calls, and now that got overturned. And that was something that Fish and Wildlife told them was fine. It's like, but if you go out and hunt geese and you take 6, you're going to be in handcuffs.
Yeah.
If you got 4 shells in your gun, you're in big trouble, but we're going to gas chamber them. So it's like those types of things that don't make sense. And I think what would help solve like wasted money and also help the Department of Natural Resources is if we implemented a system where the public could vote on like what they really cared about to help prioritize those things. I think that would really help because there's certainly a PR issue. To say the least.
Always has been.
Yeah.
You know, there's very little transparency, and they've had it. I mean, as long as I've worked for the show, it's like, wow, how do they not pay more attention to their public outlook? Because every meeting I go to, it's like everybody's all, you know, and they don't put out enough clarifying statements. There's a lot of wish-washy stuff. You know, you look like the Deer Management Initiative they did last year. They circle up all these people, spend countless hours trying to put together these recommendations, and they basically take none of them. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, these people spent hundreds of hours working towards what they thought was input that the DNR was going to value, and they basically, not totally, there was a few recommendations that they agreed with, but some of them, again, barely. The NRC didn't agree with, so it didn't matter, but yeah, barely. So you got all these people that were really passionate, thought they were going to make a big difference, and then they kind of were like, well, thanks for your time. We appreciate the insight, but we're going to keep doing what we're doing. So I think that, you know, alludes to a lot of the issues that they have with their public perception, you know.
There also comes the point is like, we as hunters and anglers, we're like, well, we fund it. Do what we want. Like, you know, it's just like some regard. Please.
Yeah.
Well, and part of the problem is, too, it's hard to get a consent. I'm sort of in the mindset of like when the DNR asks for public opinion, the public doesn't know squat.
Exactly.
So I don't think they necessarily should be asking for what does, you Joe Blow Hunter, what do you think? I kind of feel like they're supposed to take they're the ones that have a biology degree. They're supposed to know what's best for the resource.
Right.
So lead, like tell us why we're going to go to statewide APRs, or tell us why we're not going to do that. But to be like, oh, what do you guys want to do now? Do you think you want one buck or do you want two? It's like, don't ask the people.
Right.
I mean,
well, it's supposed to actually be science-based.
It's supposed to be.
And
Yes.
to me, that was what was beautiful about the Idaho thing is while it is asking the public, when they list out the 50 things, there's reasons behind each one of them.
Go through what they think of
They're given tons of data. They're telling you why we would choose this one, why we would do this, what would we do inside of doing it. So then it's like, okay, all these things make sense. So to me, this would be the most important.
Yeah.
I think too, like you alluded to, like some transparency on where the money's going. We're in this cycle now where we're looking at license fee increases for the first time in 11 years, and which I think are long overdue. But I think that there should be some, more clarifying, like where exactly is this money going? Tell me where my $50 deer tag goes now, every dollar of it. So maybe if people had a better understanding of like, is this all going towards these issues that I care about, or is 60% going towards these issues I care about?
Or are they spending millions on suing a pig farmer for having a high fence?
There you go.
It's like, that's a waste of money.
Let's see where
There's not a single person who buys a hunting license who thinks that's how we should spend it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's where it gets a little wishy-washy for me, as well as you really have to be transparent and what you're spending the money on. Because I would be the first person, again, my heart is like, I really want the Department of Natural Resources to have a beautiful relationship with the hunters, and I've seen it. It doesn't actually have to be this way. I've worked with 40 DNRs and, fishing games and everything like that across the country. New Jersey, Florida, and Michigan have the worst relationship with the people. Mm-hmm. It's like it doesn't actually have to be that way. So to me, I think the transparency is key. I think that, because here's the thing, they might be transparent and people will be like, oh, well, yeah, give them some more then. If they're spending that much on fish stocking and that's what it costs, and I definitely want fish stocked, then yeah, okay.
Probably not. But
probably not.
I will say the one difficult thing, like again,
probably not as funny.
I mean, in Michigan, we have a very opinionated and a long history of all of these activities. Some of these other states, like I don't know, Iowa or somebody that's had deer hunting for X amount of years, they don't have the same tradition that we do here in Michigan, and we don't have the same amount of passion that people here. If we went into the bar down the road and asked people how they feel about baiting, half the people would say we should never bait again. Half of them should say that, hey, but they're selling bait at the gas station.
Yeah, the people that hunt farm fields and the people that don't.
Exactly. No, just kidding. But it's like that with almost every issue. I mean, APR, same kind of thing. So it's like you start to open, like if you're the DNR, I do think that Michigan is probably one of the more difficult states to navigate because of that long hunting heritage and very opinionated and a lot of outdoorsmen and so many different things. There's guys that just walleye fish. They care less about deer hunting or whatever. And there's guys that just grouse hunt and, they don't really care what happens with the deer. And so there's this interesting dynamic where you don't have like a state with maybe limited resources where there's like, well, we trout fish and we kill mule deer. Those are the two things we care about. Like, let's do everything we can to save those two species.
Sure.
Well, in Michigan, there's like 20 of them.
Super spread out.
Yeah. So it's like you don't have all the sportsmen and going towards one thing. Obviously, deer hunting is the biggest thing, but they can't even agree on that. So
right.
it is a difficult thing to manage.
I think you're not wrong there because there's people that care about people that grouse hunt. That's what they do. They're like, no, I'm not going to bow hunt because that's grouse hunting season. I would never. And they are opinion in that way. And the one thing I would like to see is sportsmen and women across the state be more supportive of each other. You know what I'm saying? And take that approach.
Sure. And that's something we try to harp on as best we can and probably need to continue to do more on that, of being respectful when you're out there to other sportsmen. And, that's a crucial thing.
I would lend a guess, though, a lot of people that watch your show are probably not the issue there. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of the people that watch your guys' show get a lot of inspiration from you guys. And I feel as though you've always led from pretty much down the center. You've had everyone on from Ted Nugent to the guy that thinks we should, put wolves out. It's like in everywhere in between. You guys have done a remarkable job of highlighting all the issues in like a super information giving way.
I think that's always kind of our goal, right? I mean, we give you the information, give you the facts. Maybe we have access to a DNR interview that nobody else would because of our previous relationship. Well, let's give you that information, and if somebody says something on TV that sounds foolish, which has happened a few times, well, digest that as you may. Like, you know, that's,
let them talk.
Yeah, that's their.
We've had a handful of DNR people that have been fired after interviews with us, or moved to another position. Over the years, and so we don't obviously want that.
No,
we don't go into it like, hey, how can we trip this guy up? People would love for us to bash the DNR. I mean, they would eat it up with a spoon, and that's what Fred Trost did for years and years and years here in the state of Michigan, and have a very adversarial relationship with the department, but people loved that. But I think for us, we try to work with the DNR as best we can. We're going to say, hey, we think this was stupid that they did this or whatever, but we at the end of the day,
you treat them like family, where it's like you're like, don't be an idiot for a second. You can say that, but you don't want them to leave.
Oh, we have a good relationship with the DNR too. And that's something that we do.
And there's a lot of good people over there, and there's a lot of people that don't agree with what the department's doing that are in the department. So it's not all, there's some bad apples when it comes to certain COs and that kind of stuff, but like any profession, you're going to have
100%. What do they say? No matter how big the group is, like at least 2% is going to be an idiot. You know what I mean?
At least
we run at a higher average at my company, but
it's a higher percentage.
It's higher than 2.
Maybe 2% aren't.
Well, I appreciate you guys coming in and talking about these topics. Like I said, thank you for what you do, because if you didn't step up and do that, I might not have been as inspired as I was by you guys. And like I said, I finally worked out your language out of my vocabulary now, so that people don't think I'm just trying to be you. But I've looked up to you guys for a while, and I appreciate everything you've done for the state and the fact that you've raised awareness for hunting and fishing and the things that I care about. And I also think it's exciting to me that, and we're going to give a shout out to Colton's grandpa as well, because he's never missed an episode of your show, and he's in his 80s as well. He was out duck hunting yesterday, in his late 80s, and killed some mallards. So he did great, but he's never missed an episode of Michigan Outdoors, so we'll give a shout out to him too. But the fact that you've given people something to get excited about on Thursday nights to go watch Michigan Outdoors for so long, to go see the TV show or go to the YouTube channel after and watch it there, it's just really cool, because it's inspired a lot of kids to get in the outdoors. So,
well, we've had a ton of fun and continue to have a lot of fun doing it. And people ask me all the time, like, what's the best part of working with Michigan Outdoors? And the best part, in my estimation, is the people that you meet along the way, and the relationships that you build. And some of my really close friends, guys that I've hunted with for years now, are people who I met, earlier on in the television show. Remember the first time I saw I grew up with some dogs, but I've never seen really good dogs work. And I remember seeing that for the first time, and I'm like, oh my word, this is a whole nother sport when you have a grouse dog that knows what it's doing, or a really good retriever in the duck marsh or something like that. But the amount of people and places that you get to go, and just to highlight this state, I mean, we are very blessed to have the jobs that we do, and a lot of good people out there.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. We appreciate your time today.
Appreciate the conversation.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Greenway Outdoors podcast. You can find all of the information for all of our different TV shows, vlogs, podcasts, Outdoor Wilderness Chronicles. All those things can be found right below in the link below. Thanks so much for tuning in. Stay green.